So I was genuinely having a good night until I learned about the newest TikTok disease. Let's talk about the Great Shift discourse. So, if I'm not mistaken, the Great Shift is basically when a bunch of people on TikTok decide that one race is now suddenly attractive. It's definitely occurred in 2020. Like, 2020 was the year when black women suddenly became a thing. And by a thing, I mean like kind of sort of a viable option for dating. Like the early 2000s to like 2020, we were seeing like light skinned men and black men become fetishized more and more in the media. But black women were not a part of this. This was just a black men thing until TikTok. I never knew it was called the Great Shift. I was calling it the ethereal black woman movement. When every single dark skinned black woman would just have their comments full of, "You look ethereal." That is the background. Now this is happening to Indian women. And I, for one, have definitely noticed this shift. Like, I'm seeing a lot more Indian women just, get the representation and praise that they deserve. And when you look at this from the outside, it does look like a good thing. Like, yes, we're praising minorities, but that's not exactly what's happening. All the Great Shift really is just like a race and chase for approval from white people. Like, black women, Indian women, we've all always looked this way. We've all always been beautiful, but we never had that gold stamp of approval from white people. I think the real reason why, women of color have not gotten their praise is because of white men specifically, desire to stay within their type. They have really solidified this idea of racial preference and excluding whole races from people you find attractive. Because this became like a justified thing, people were never really going out of their way to look for attractive people of color. They were never exposed to them, and they always associate, people of color with their stereotypes because they're not white ugliness. Now TikTok is like shoving these women into their faces, and they cannot ignore it. I want to say though, this is not real validation in any sense of the word. Notice that for different races, when this happens, you'll see like a specific archetype of a woman that is glorified. I remember specifically this girl named Jax who was just bombarded with the ethereal comments simply because of the fact that she was a very dark-skinned woman, and it was almost like her beauty was used as a token. A lot of times, like, dark-skinned women were singled out and only called beautiful because they looked different from the norm and to white people exotic. So therefore, we'll call you beautiful to almost give you like a justification for your skin color. And I think that the same thing is going to happen with Indian women. Like, we're seeing a lot of Indian women with unique features. Sometimes I would even say like more Eurocentric features, like lighter colored eyes, lighter colored hair, like certain traits. And what this Great Shift is doing is like allowing white people to pick certain traits and certain types of minorities to glorify for the day. That's not really a win for the whole community in any sense. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how this pans out for Indians compared to black people. Advice for me is just don't take this personally and don't take it as validation in any sense. It is not that in the slightest.